Hey marketers, welcome to the Authority Hacker Podcast. I am Gail Breton, one of the hosts of the show, and actually the only host available today because if you don't know, Mark got married recently and he's just gone on the honeymoon for a month, which gives me complete freedom to do whatever I want with the company. So I'm quite curious to know if he's gonna cry of happiness or despair with what I've done with what we built in the last 10 years. Anyway, because he's gone, I've decided to invite some of my marketer friends to co-host the podcast with me so that we can keep the podcast going and keep talking about stuff and you can get some fresh perspectives on things that we might have a different opinion on, and it's going to be quite interesting to see us debate about that. In this week's podcast, I've invited Matthew Woodward, who was the guy who was the inspiration behind the whole Authority Hacker concept. I've always liked how honest he was. I liked his really harsh, in-depth review of online marketing products, and overall, I think he's a pretty smart guy, so I thought he had some cool stuff to share with us. And stuff to share he had. This was a really long and quite messy interview, if I'm honest with you, but there was a lot of nuggets that you can pick up in this video. If you're looking for practical tips, then we are talking about website structure, we're talking about redesigning sites that are aging, and we're also talking about putting together very in-depth reviews. And for those who are looking for like more high-level advice, then we talk about like leveling yourself up as a marketer and going from a basic affiliate marketer to becoming a well-rounded marketer that's able to build real businesses. I hope you enjoyed this interview. If you do, don't forget to subscribe on the button below and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any video and smash that like button. Enjoy the interview. Hey guys, welcome to this episode. Today we are welcoming Matthew Woodward. He's actually the guy that gave me the idea to start Authority Hacker. He was doing, very actionable stuff on the gray hat side of things. I kind of wanted to do the same thing on the white hat side of things, but with that gray hat mentality. I shamelessly say that Matthew is the guy that inspired us to start Authority Hacker. So Matthew, thank you for coming. It's really cool to have you. You're in Costa Rica, I'm in Hungary, so I'm a bit jealous of the weather you probably have over there because it's like freezing here and everything.
I actually didn't know that that's why you started Authority Hacker. I'm very flattered, and I've been a reader of yours since very early on as well. So that's a very mutual respect. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like I remember your tiered link building tutorials. I remember these videos when you started. And I was like, oh, that's great! Like finally someone that talks about actionable stuff because it's like if you followed the white hat stuff, it was like basically Moz at the time. It was like, oh, you should do great content and like people will link to you, etc. It's like it wasn't like, oh, how do I do this stuff? Which honestly has changed a lot. Like a lot of people talk about more actionable stuff now. I feel like things have evolved. Like even Brian Dean, etc., have brought a lot more actionable stuff to the table. But at the time it was a bit of a gap. So yeah, we started doing that, and that worked pretty well. So you are definitely the guy who inspired us. I was like, I can do that too.
The great irony is the reason I created the tiered link building tutorials was because of all that crap that was just on Mars. Like create great content. It was actually Matt Cutts, like just create great content. Don't worry about links. I was like, okay, let's see how that works out. So I did a link building tutorial doing that, and
it worked.
That's great irony. It was an experiment that, much to, kind of my annoyance and my pleasure, was a great success because I didn't really want to prove Matt Cutts right.
But that's the thing is, like, I think online marketing is a bit of a different niche to some aspect. Like it's small enough to like, so you get known and people talk and there's a lot of like real life events, etc. So it's like, I think there's two things. There's the people who who are only working online marketing that think that this will work in every niche. Mm-hmm. And there's also the fact that it's just the right size of niche where you can actually get links from like connections, etc. But if you're in like really large B2C niches, like just by like word of mouth is just not enough. Like you cannot compete against Mayo Clinic, but with word of mouth or something.
Yeah,
like
that's true.
It's not happening. So I think it's like it is interesting, but I think a lot of like online marketing people just kind of like are disconnected from that reality from people who work in larger B2C niches. And I think, but like you definitely address that in your content as well. But like a lot of people don't, and it's tricky. So people like Matt Cutts, Trent Fishkin, etc., were the people that would defend that vision of things where it would not necessarily be applicable to a lot of niches.
But a lot of it comes through. I find a lot of people in SEO lack business acumen, marketing knowledge, general sales knowledge. They got into SEO from SEO. Whereas a lot of the more experienced and successful people came into SEO after they'd had some kind of business level experience, whether it was corporate or some kind of, so I think often the way that we interpret that advice also depends on what background we've come from. Some people are biased and don't want to hear that because they've labeled themselves as a black hat SEO. And equally, when people read something about black hat and they've labeled themselves as a white hat SEO, they're ignorant of that as well. Like, Google's an algorithm. It's looking for certain metrics to go in, and then certain results come out. And that's a process we can observe. Putting any hat on it, any black hat or white hat on it, is just a fine example of human stupidity as its finest, and our need to imprint ego and psyche into it. So a lot of that advice is, it depends what side of the fence you've decided you're on. I'm on the side of the fence of what works. Rather than
fair enough. I mean,
in those labels. And the blog was, and actually Authority Hacker as well in itself is a great example of what happens when you create great content and forget about link building. I think both of us.
We actually do link building.
Yeah, but have you always done link building?
No, it's been on and off. But it's like at the beginning there was a bit of an effort on link building. You know how I got Authority Hacker off the ground? Actually, it's like I would have the RSS feed over all the big blogs, including yours, actually. And every time they would publish something, I would literally be the first comment in there, so that I could like leak some traffic from the comments and stuff.
And that's how I started as well. Like I didn't start my SEO blog with SEO, and people will then come into your site and seeing your great content. It's a great content that allowed Authority Hacker to grow. It's a great content that allowed my SEO blog to grow, much to my annoyance. And so when people say, "Oh, just publish high quality content and don't worry about the rest," there is a certain element to that, but that's stepping away from SEO and more into sales and marketing, relationship building. And that's when you start building a real business as opposed to an affiliate site.
I agree. We talk a lot about that, actually. Like, we try to bring people who actually like step outside of like building a basic affiliate site. I think it's still a great way to start, but I think it's a good thing to have a vision past that business model.
Yes.
It's kind of like the way we try to grow our sites. That's why we have these, like, we have 3 stages. We have stage 1, which is basically a basic affiliate site. Stage 2, which is like start building audiences, build an email list, monetize with affiliates, start building a social following, do all of that. And like, you can even trade like shout outs on social for links, etc., to kind of like grow your SEO and so on. And stage 3, which is essentially owning the offer, owning the products, not being an affiliate, but rather just like expanding your margins through duplicating what has worked for you as an affiliate.
You could add stage 4, be the network, and then you get a slice. Then you get a slice of all your competitors' commissions as well.
You can do that.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, the thing is like. You can copy that. That can work. I haven't been to that stage yet. Usually we own the offer, but we don't have the network yet. But we have affiliate programs for like the products we own, and that works pretty well for us. Can you actually talking about business model? Can you explain to people what you do, how much of your business is matthewwoodward.co.uk, what else you do, etc., etc.
Okay, so I had a baby like a year and a few months ago. In October 2018. Check, it's 2020 now. So that's been presenting new challenges in life and taking me away from a lot of things. Luckily, the year before, I'd offloaded a lot of my sites, and I actually went to a mastermind in London, and there I was like, well, I feel like I've achieved all of my personal goals. Money's not a worry anymore. I've got location free. I didn't really know what direction to go. I felt I didn't have a completely clean slate, but more enough that I'd freed up 80% of my time, and a lot of the sites were gone. So I was like, well, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So over the last kind of year and 4 months in between juggling baby and daddy duties, rebuilding, without giving it away, a lot of people just build Amazon sites. And one of the questions I love to ask people that build Amazon sites is, what value does your site present over and above me going to Amazon directly and reading verified reviews? Like, what do you do? What value do you add above that experience? So I build sites that still use Amazon, but build on that experience to add additional value that most Amazon affiliates aren't really doing. So I've been building out lots of new sites in that area, mostly based in ethical movements or movements of people, groups of people that have very strong beliefs. As well as on the Matthew Woodward blog, that's undergone a bit of a renovation. I changed it from being less of a blog and more of a site. I wanted it to be more of a resource rather than just. Well, I never really started a blog with a plan. It like it was an experiment that went well and continued to grow. And I tried to give it a bit of a shuffle and some direction last year. We got the Search Logistics Agency. I'm building a couple of nice tools that, polishing up for public release. That should really help people out when it comes to link prospecting, finding link opportunities, finding contact details. I've been paying close attention to the niche edits.
Okay.
this
So did
past
BuzzFeed.
month or so, and everything that's going on,
Yeah.
I'm going to release a tool that actually helps people detect if they've had niche edits
That's interesting.
on their site. So I should have the first version of that tomorrow.
Nice. So it's gonna be out by the time the podcast comes out, actually. So
probably, you never know how testing goes and all the other things. It's not that simple of a thing to achieve. But I think we got it. I think we got the process down. The manual process works out. It's can we automate it now and scan sites and find that. So I'll give that away. And yeah, I mean, I'm just busy all of the time,
Sounds like a lot of stuff already.
Many things. Yeah.
I'm starting a bunch of. I'm retired, but I start a bunch of sites. I work on my blog. I do all of that. That's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds simple, but supporting all that. There's multiple writers. There's a link building team. There's everything between all of that.
It's a lot.
But it's I love doing it. So.
Yeah, fair enough. I think you get bored otherwise. Like it's like
I did, and I literally stood at the mastermind like I felt like I've achieved everything I want to achieve. What do I do? I went there feeling lost almost, like I don't really know what to do. And the general advice that was given to me was, well, stop focusing on what's about you and elevate the people around you.
Okay.
That's what I've been doing, and you'll probably see a lot of that come across the blog the next year or so. Pivotally, I decided, Matt Diggity posted a status that really resonated with me a few days ago, saying that he was going to write less for keywords and more about his passion.
Yeah.
And that's a trap that I fell into last year in an effort to build out kind of like a static beginner's resource of SEO, everything you need to know from what is SEO all the way through to link building, and everything in between that. That's what I tried to build. But I was writing for keywords more than people, whereas the success of my blog came from writing about the passion and what solving people's problems and everything like that. And I felt like I stepped away from that, and I think Mr. Diggity as well.
Yeah, I mean, we did that too, to be honest, on the Authority Hacker. I mean, we've done that too, but I think we've always been conscious that if we just become some generic blog, it's just gonna, like, nobody's gonna care. And to be frank, even the posts when we put a lot of care, I just feel the pure blog format on its own, I believe, is fading away, like just pure written text content. It's like, even if you look at people that are really good at content marketing, even if you look at like Brian Dean, for example, Brian Dean releases a big guide today. It doesn't make nearly as much as a splash as it used to 4 or 5 years ago. And my belief is that for us, like, as I said, we talked about online marketing. It's kind of like a micro community, and you need to like captivate people to like get attention, and it's like the blog format is actually slowly fading away to become a support source of traffic rather than your main source of traffic.
Yes.
And I think for a lot of niches it works that way as well, even for things like product reviews. Like, it's like, if you look at someone like MKBHD on YouTube, for example, this guy is the guy that's fucking killing it with reviews. It's not the people who write. It's not even expert reviews or like trusted reviews. Like, I'm thinking about these big tech review sites, for example. And so it's almost like SEO comes later. You just create content that's interesting, and then you kind of mash up that content into SEO pages that you don't necessarily advertise as much, or you just quickly post them on your social profiles, etc. But you advertise your new video, you advertise your new podcast, you maybe like do that kind of stuff. And then from that, let's say I did very in-depth review, like you do in-depth reviews for tools, for example, and from that maybe I'll do a best roundup post that I don't push as hard, but it's here for SEO purposes. So it's kind of like
of course,
the way I'm looking at it. And you know who does that really well? Ahrefs. Ahrefs basically uses their YouTube channel to engage their audience. And then their blog, they don't even promote it that much. Like you don't really get promoted their blog posts, but look at them on Ahrefs actually. Look at their rankings.
I think Ahrefs suffered from the same issue that we have, that we stopped writing for the people and we started writing for the keywords recently.
Yeah, but like
when I opened an Ahrefs post, I was like, "Whoa, hooked top to bottom." Now I'm like,
I think it's. I don't think so. I think it's the end of the. I think it's the end of the blog. Like people watch YouTube videos.
I think it is the end of the traditional blog, but not because it's the end of the blog, but it's the start of building a real business. It's something that people have been lacking for a long time, and now you got to get away from the fact that you're building a blog or a site. You're not doing either of those things. You're building a business, and that's a very different shift in mindset.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It even changes how you approach SEO. For example, when you build a business, you're worried about a GMB profile. If you build a blog, you're not. So it completely changes your approach to SEO when you build a business rather than building an affiliate site. And I think that's more where we're seeing the change, because now we're seeing big money into come. We've got big media companies coming in, and they're taking their business, tried and tested business models, and now adapting them for the web. And then they're crushing the little guys that still aren't building businesses.
I mean, for the product reviews, definitely. Like product reviews are becoming extremely competitive right now, especially for the large B2C markets. Like like the big companies probably already took like 30 or 40% of subs at this point. For like the big ones, like if you go look for blenders or like baby products or that kind of stuff. I'm talking large B2C markets, then yes. But like I see a blog more as a collection of landing pages for SEO rather than a way to engage an audience at this point.
I agree with that.
And you engage your audience with Instagram stories, YouTube videos, social media posts, podcasts like this one, etc. Like the more like casual content where you can actually open up a bit more and like express a bit more of your personality that you can't really do through writing. So a blog post is very interesting when you're searching for something. It's great. Like you're looking for this, there's a really in-depth resource and you find value into that. But people spending hours reading blog posts, I just don't see as much anymore as I used to.
No, not unless they're trying to learn something.
Yeah, it's like, but like usually it's a short period, right? It's kind of like that high heat period when you like get into something and you want to read a lot about it. So like I've been reading a lot about photography recently, but to be honest, I don't expect to read as much in a year than I would read right now. And then once I caught up, then I'll probably be consuming. I'll be subscribing to YouTube channels, maybe following some people on social media, etc. And not as much like learning about like what is aperture, what is ISO, etc. Like how to set that up and so on. And once you've captured that basic knowledge that requires in-depth guides, then I think you would rather snackable content than you would than like a 10,000 words blog post just for entertainment.
Oh yeah. Oh, I mean, there's other reasons we've moved away from long form content as well. And that's because Google's now looking to return relevance. Long form content used to be king. I think both of us probably have posts that exceed 15,000 words.
Oh yeah.
I think my longest one is 32,000. And that rarely does content of that length answer a query specifically. And I think anyone that was into 10 times in content and things like that are paying a price now, as opposed to people who didn't put as much effort in, that are more specific in how they answer a query.
I agree. Now we build hubs basically. Now we focus on planning a hub of like 20 pages or something that all kind of like interlink to each other, are related, like whatever subtopics are mentioned. And these pages are gonna be usually between 1,000 and let's say max 3,000 words. I would say so around that.
So instead of doing it as one previous like ultimate guide like you would have done before, a portal page, bring it all together and
I have a few still in edit on Authority Hacker. It's like I'm just like really lazy to actually finish editing them right now because I know they don't work. But there's still some cool data posts that I need to post. I'll post them. But like, to be frank, yeah, I say
I mean,
I just
there are times when it's right. That's the right type of content to publish. But in general, now,
yep,
it's
not
better to
anymore.
be more specific and get to the point.
I mean,
Uh,
the thing is, like, long content really evolved, right? It's like at some point, 2000 was long content. Now we just consider it normal.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so you got you at some point, like at the Wicked Fire times, like 1,000 words was long content, and people were like, "Oh my god, you're writing 1,000 words! It's like an authority
Yeah.
article, etc." Now it's considered a short article.
Yeah, and
So,
a good example is like if you search for like best product, like if
yeah,
the very first thing at the top of your article isn't a product table, then
yeah, you're losing money. Yeah,
you're not only just losing money, but you're stepping away from intent.
yep.
Whereas before you wouldn't have wanted your product table up at the top because you want to introduce some content, make sure you have some keywords, so that's a big change just in how you structure a page as well.
And the thing is, like, it kind of like fucks old sites because I'm sure you had that as well. Like, where you have pages that used to rank really well, and then now it's just not the intent of the SERPs anymore, and
Yeah,
your content goes like,
yeah,
and just completely goes down. It's actually a debate I wanted to have with you. Basically, there's kind of like two ways of building a site at this point. There's like you can build a site with lots of pages, but then you don't have that many resources to like keep them up to date and like keep competing with the people who are ranking and like monitoring it and adapting. Or you can build a site with few pages, and then you can have a lot of resources left to keep updating it, kind of like keep fighting for that top 3, etc., etc. What's your take on this?
It really depends niche to niche. There's never a single truth in SEO, digital marketing, or affiliate. And many people are often looking for that single truth, and it just doesn't exist. There isn't a single truth. So if I'm going into any niche, the first thing I want to know is who are my competitors. Like if there's a bunch of sites that have tons of content and really high end production, I'm probably not going to try and play too much. But if you see a site ranking where it does have a small amount of pages, and just what is ranking, that's what you need to build. Google's algorithm, when you do the search results, that's an output of the algorithm. So what is ranking? Going back to 10 times in your content, there's no point writing 10,000 words if everything that's ranking on the first page is 500 words. Like,
Yep.
you just and the same thing.
We say that now, but like 5 years ago, people would have said, "Oh no, you need to outdo your competitor and write longer content."
Of course, yeah, of course. But that's how things evolve, and right. It's always been that case. What works then is often what trips you. But what has never failed in all of these time and all of the algorithms since Google existed is the power of observation. That's never failed, and that's current, it's live, it's real time, and it's very, very much underused because we've all got tools like Ahrefs and big data and automation and all of that, but we've also got a web browser and Google, which actually tells you what they're looking for. You don't need to do any research. You just need to type the queries into Google, and Google tells you what they're looking for, and then do that.
That's why SEO
then flesh it out with data from different places. But just that raw power of observation. Should I have few pages with lots of content or lots of pages with not much content? Well, depends on the niche. What are you competing against? Are you competing against 5,000 page monsters, or are you competing against 300 word quick answers? Are you competing against list posts, or are you competing against reviews, or what is the current challenges? And that varies. Not only does that vary niche to niche, it can actually vary like within the different verticals of that niche. Like there isn't a single truth. There just isn't. The single truth exists here with your eyes, your brain, the observation, and Google telling you what.
It's quite interesting,
and
actually.
Just give it to them. That's it.
It's we did a prediction podcast, and we got a bunch of people to like submit their predictions. And Glenn from detail.com, gaps.com, Verpachel, etc., said that he expects that there will be multiple blocks of intents within the same SERP from next year. So
Yes.
Most likely what's going to happen is you're not going to be competing against like 10 list posts, but there's going to be a block of list posts, a block of maybe reviews or something.
Yep.
And then you essentially will have like 2 or 3 posts that you can compete against based on what format your page is like following, basically. So it's actually narrowing down even more. I could see that actually. It's like even Google, it's like I definitely tweeted a lot of shit at them for like killing diversity in SERPs. Um, and since the medic update, basically you'd get 10 times the same thing, like ranking on the subs at this point. And they did reply with like, yeah, we want to increase diversity in subs. So I could imagine them just doing that, just identifying the different types of formats and essentially doing that. So it might actually happen, which then it's not even going to be looking at like the top 10 results, going to be looking at these 2 results that match what you do.
Of
And
course,
competing
you know,
against that,
and you know, you don't really need to look at the top 10. The top 3 will tell you everything that you need. The top 10's just like if you're like really nerding out, you know.
I agree.
The top 3 will give you the 80% to make.
Which is why I think we need to both petition Surfer SEO to stop giving us top 50 rankings results, because we don't care.
They should just limit us from the get-go.
That's the truth, right? It's like they average the top like by 10 results. So you get the average of the top 10 and then the average of like the 10 to 20 and 20 to 30, etc. Nobody cares about these graphs. So,
no.
So please tell them. Please tell them as well. I've been lobbying for them to change that, to just put the audit in front end and then put the stats in background. But
okay, no problem. I'll let them know.
Yeah. But like, that I use Surfer. I know you use it as well. I saw you did the review as well recently. It's basically allowing to do that, but I think there's a risk of people, one, not using their critical sense using these kind of tools, especially Surfer. On one end, it's like one thing that I'm not a huge fan of is the true density. You know, they give you the range of what your competitors have. So it's going to be like 5 to 12, and they'll be like, you should have it 18 times or something.
Yeah.
And very often they recommend keyword density that's like a little bit dangerous to my taste.
One of the crossover issues I think that Surfer SEO could improve upon is separating body content from comments.
Yeah, they're pretty bad at this.
Because you know, a lot of my posts have more than 1,000 comments on them.
Yep.
To the point where they make up 90% of the page content. And that's a tricky problem to deal with. On one hand, you've got Google saying that adds social proof, and they do include that as part of their page scoring. On the other hand, they also include all of that content in their indexing and how they evaluate the quality of your content. So it's a tricky one to deal with. And especially when you're looking across search results, like you probably often find that many of the top ranking things have 0 comments, even if they have the ability to place a comment. So it would be nice if Surfer introduced a way to separate that out, and you know, it's easy to target the content body.
It's quite easy actually. It's like we actually did it. So you know, we did these data studies last year, where we like calculated average number of votes per top ranking pages, etc. So we actually had to look into that problem. And Firefox has this readability mode where it just removes navigation and everything, so you can just read the article. And this has an API. They could literally use that, and we tried all of them. That was the most accurate, actually. So
cool.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised, actually.
It's a problem I had to solve with the niche edit checker tool.
Yeah.
Well, because obviously adding a comment adds a link, and we don't want that to flag up as a niche edit. So we had to do that.
You can
quite easy to do with some fuzzy matching in CSS.
Yeah,
but we're getting a bit nerdy.
It's getting a bit too nerdy. All right. Let's go back to the proper stuff. Let me check my notes actually. Oh yeah, I wanted to go through your site redesign process, because I think you did a lot of thinking before you redesigned your site on Matthew Woodward.
Yes.
I think it shows by the way you're like segmenting things and the way you're placing your call to actions, etc. So, and I think and that's kind of like an overall theme I wanted to talk about with you. Is kind of like, as your site get older, like how do you overcome the challenges, which is like updating content, all of that, etc. And one of them is the rebranding, redesign kind of thing that you kind of need to do every like 3 to 6 years, I would say, because it just gets old, and everything. So I wanted to know like how you went about that, why you did it, and kind of like what you learned through the process, basically.
Okay. Well, I'll pull some actual numbers up as I'm talking. So I've always been relatively connected to the audience of the blog through comments and so on. And one of the common complaints that I got was that, I had lots of content on the blog. And before it was just a blog, just a list of posts, right? And it wasn't particularly categorized well or tagged well. Like I say, it's an experiment. I never planned it. It just went. You could learn about blogging and you could learn about SEO in the same category.
Yep.
It made separating out the information very, very difficult. And WordPress search, as you know, sucks. Never returns any real relevant results. So like the opposite of Google. And then that was a sticking problem. It was a continuous problem. And the only way I thought I could fix that was to improve the user journey. A blog in itself is essentially selfish by nature. It's just like, here's what I've written in the order I've written it. It's not really focused on connecting a person's problem to a solution. So the entire kind of thinking behind the new design was, how quickly can I connect someone's problem to a solution? So then I looked at all of the content I had and I was like, okay, well, what are all the problems people trying to solve when they reach this content? And from that, I was like, okay, well, we've got to do the homepage, we've got to do an SEO portal, we've got to do a blogging portal. And the one that really tripped me up was the work portal. Now, I have a lot of content. I literally rank for or used to, make money online. Which is not really a term you want to rank for, by the way. But I have lots of content like how to make your first dollar on Fiverr.
I saw on Elance as well. You have that.
And that all of that type of content, I feel like is hurting me hosting all of them. So I was like, well, what portal am I going to put that in? I can't put it in Make Money. Maybe I can put it in Hustle. That sounds a bit spammy, but I really hate when people sell the dream that you can make a bunch of money without doing any work and all the rest of it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to call it the work portal, because work means you've got to actually fucking do something.
Yeah, you got to do something.
So that's why it's called the work portal, which I'm probably going to cut and just delete all of that content.
Yeah, I see you're getting quite broad there. You have like productivity tool and virtual assistant tools.
Yeah,
and
it's
Gmail tricks and
it's and like you say, how do you keep over time that content kind of built up? For a period of time, I accepted guest posts. That was a mistake. By accepting guest posts, I really lost control.
I get a lot of emails.
It was a mistake on my part to allow it, and it's my audience that paid the price for my mistake ultimately. So we put an end to that. I deleted a lot of content, reorganized, shuffled it all, and it's still a long way to go. But that was kind of the thought process behind the redesign. I wanted to make it less of a blog that was just me, and more about a site that helps people solve their problems, because the content existed to do that, but it wasn't structured that way.
And also the old content just becomes hard to find on the blog in general. Like it's unless you feature it on the sidebar or something like that. Like it's diesel search, right?
Yeah.
Which kind of sucks. Like sometimes like your best posts are like some older ones rather
than like page 10, So that's why I decided to redesign it. I had a reader survey, a bunch of feedback, and I just tried to address as much of that feedback as possible with that structure and those pages.
What kind of questions did you ask to people like in the survey? Like 2 or 3 important ones.
So there's actually, let me just check that I did actually publish.
You emailed your list, right? You just emailed your email list for that.
Yeah. There's actually a link that explains the changes that I made. So I was asking people questions like, okay, what do you want to learn about? So very basics. What do you want to learn about? Most of my audience wants to learn about SEO and link building. It was like 70% want to learn about that, 40% want to learn about blogging, 35% want to learn about make money online. Hence, SEO, blogging, and the work portals. Yeah. That's what the audience wanted. That's what they got. Then it was, how do you want to learn? People want to learn via image or text mostly, and then video. Okay. My audience were not interested in a podcast. It was like 2% of the people were interested in a podcast.
I'm not surprised. Even a lot of people who follow us don't listen to podcasts. So yeah, it's like
podcast
is like you love it or you hate it. Like some people go crazy about it, and some people, like many people, don't care.
Yeah. So questions like that. What's one thing you hate about the blog? What's one thing you love about it? What's one thing I should change immediately? those kinds of
Mm-hmm.
questions. And then once you get all the answers, I did it in SurveyMonkey, and then I just went through the answers and kind of came up with like categories of what the answer fell into. It was like design, and then hyphen hard to navigate, design, hyphen color scheme. Lots of
Yeah.
complaints about that. And
Okay.
then categorize the answers, and from that you kind of got a breakdown of what you've got to change. And yeah, great. What one thing you love about the blog? Great reading the answers to those. Not so great reading what do you hate about the blog. that you're like, oh yeah, your ego's growing, and then you read those and you're like, oh.
We get that for our courses, like we spend like months recording and so on, and then people are like, oh, you actually like couldn't type this properly, or like some people are like, oh, I saw all your sites when you had the browser history pop up when you were typing something or whatever. Yeah, it happens. But at the same time, it's nice to get honest feedback, to be honest. It's rare to be able to have that as well. Like,
yeah,
not everyone can reach that. And that's one good reason to build an email list. A lot of people get lazy AF to build an email list.
yeah.
It's probably one of the best things you can do, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, touch button access to your community with no noise.
So what was next after you did the survey?
So after the survey, putting it all together gave me a clear direction that I needed to address navigation and things. That was done with the restructuring the portals, and that was really it. The blog theme stayed the same except for a new header. We just simplified the header and simplified the navigation. Other than that, not a lot changed. I was also doing various split tests. There used to be a cartoon me in the header, and I split tested that and removed that. I also split.
Did that really make an impact? The cartoon?
Yeah. I split tested the logo as you see it now. The logo with the cartoon and the logo with a little image of little photo of me, and that was a clear winner.
But like, what were you testing against? So what was the goal? Like opt-ins?
Like engagement, bounce rates, time on page. Yeah,
I see.
Yeah, because it's one of the first things people see, and if you hit my site on mobile, it's
big.
Yeah. So that's what I was testing against. So it's gone through, since its launch, it's gone through changes. I'm still not entirely happy with the full structure. I feel like the homepage needs a lot of work. It's too busy. There's too much choice, not enough content. I feel like that's hurting me.
I see you added a recent post, actually.
Yeah, that I missed, and I added it not really in a very nice way. And it's manual, so that sucks.
I do manual on the homepage too. Like on the homepage, I use my homepage to rank posts as well, right? It's like
of course, yeah. Well, yeah, internal linking's a whole other thing. Yeah.
It's like my homepage is definitely like a big it's like I try to pick a mix of like stuff I want people to read and actually what I want to rank or like performs well in terms of conversion.
Yeah, of course. It's a balance between rankings, conversion, and everything else. Yeah. But that is actually genuinely the latest post because I do all of that internal linking further down, which is
I see it.
Probably gone on the wrong end of the scale on that, a bit too heavy, I think.
Yeah, if you put too many links on your homepage, then it dials to a point where it doesn't help that much.
Exactly, and I think I'm a victim of that.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the grass is always greener, right? It's like sometimes it's like for us, I think I could even put more links, right? I guess it depends how many links you have pointed to your homepage, etc. Like you can decide.
Well, look, I built a blog off the back of Matt Cut saying, forget about SEO, just create quality content and focus on helping people, and structuring it like that focuses on helping people. So yeah.
Do you feel all of that was worth it? Like I feel like you spent a lot of time on it. Like looking back, it's been a few months now. Like how do you feel after the fact?
It's pivoted me away. Before I was ranking for a lot of terms I didn't really want to rank for, like make money online. Changing that structure around, now I'm ranking for less trafficked keywords, but they're the keywords I want to rank for.
Proper SEO.
Yeah. So it's helped in that respect, and that's why that entire work section's up for review. Because if I track, because I when the updates come, I actually break it down by section.
Mm-hmm.
and I can see that work section continuously gets smashed, whereas the SEO or blogging either doesn't get touched or it raises a little bit, like, but the work section's just, and that's because it's stepping into your money or your life kind of. So I've
I
been
think
doing
it's
like
also because of the links you get, right?
to
You're
see if
known in SEO, you get links in
cover.
SEO. So your
Yeah.
site is deemed relevant in SEO and maybe not as relevant in like freelancing and making money on Fiverr and stuff like that, I guess.
Yes, of course, of course. So I'm experimenting with some your money or your life signals to see
I
what
see.
happens there before I take the delete decision, but it's definitely up for review.
Fair enough. I mean, I like that you're honest about it because, one thing I hate about people who talk about online marketing is when they win every time they talk, and
No, you don't.
it's like,
No one wins
and
every time.
exactly, and like we've talked many times. I mean, we had sites penalized that we used to share publicly,
Yeah,
etc. So it's like people know, but like, thank you for being honest because
yeah,
not everyone is like that,
that's
and
how
it's
it is.
appreciated.
It's a game we play. Like you got to roll with the punches, and that's how it is. You've always like we said, things that worked 5 years ago
Yeah, don't
don't
work
work
anymore.
now. And that's the difference between someone who can survive in the SEO world and someone who can't. You've got to be able to pivot, change, learn, and accept, move on, and be honest about it. That's how it is.
And
Uh,
it's not only that, but when your site gets older, essentially you've done things that you did them because they worked at the time, but now they're like
yes.
the opposite of what works today.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to
Yeah.
get caught into this. And in the SEO community, people will quickly point the finger at you with today's standards and be like, "Oh, why did you do that?" You're like, it makes no sense, etc. It's like, no, like actually 5 years ago, that's what made the most sense to do. And it's like, we are suffering that stuff on several sites, and you get that as well, which is like,
It's
it's
part of the
normal, as
process.
you'll say. And you know what? It's a good problem to have. It means you've lasted, which most people who never seen that problem is because they never were able to maintain a site to a profitable level
Yeah, to
for
that
long
point,
enough to reach
because
that point.
they didn't build a business; they built a site.
Exactly. And
And
so,
you
yeah,
got to go through, like, you know if you've built a business, you don't really care about algorithm updates.
yeah, you get. I
I
mean, you can
mean,
get traffic from multiple places anyway.
it has, it has an impact. Of course, it has an impact, but it 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 shouldn't be a challenge to the survivability of your business. It just shouldn't be. And if it is,
Yeah.
then, well, good luck.
Well, you need to diversify your traffic. That's
Yeah.
one thing I do. Like I spend quite a bit of time on social media and paid traffic these days. Actually, I spent a lot of money on paid traffic last year. And
Yeah, but that's part of a coherent digital marketing strategy.
yeah,
SEO's a small part
so
of
traffic
a
source.
digital marketing strategy, but some people look at SEO as the digital marketing strategy, and that's a huge, huge
Yeah,
mistake. And
it's
that
not a
goes
business
it goes
model.
back
It's a
to,
traffic source.
it goes back to saying, look, people are building sites, not businesses. When you
Yep.
build a business, every decision you take, you have a different answer to when you build a business versus building a site.
It happens very often to us that we give up big keywords and like lose traffic, but like some small keywords have like 5 or 6 times the conversion rate and are much more
Exactly.
valuable to us. And
Yeah.
it's like I'm not gonna
Yeah.
give big names, but like in Try My SEO, I had that several times. People are like, oh, like you're losing traffic here, etc. Like I'm like, sure. You know what I mean? It's like when you're actually tracking your metrics on analytics, etc. Like a lot of traffic is useless. You realize that from SEO.
Yes.
And then and whatever you see in Ahrefs is not very relevant. It's relevant if like all your traffic is like roundup reviews. Like
Yeah.
if that's the case, then sure, like it's a good enough
Yeah.
metric.
Yeah.
As soon as you have a business model that's slightly more complicated, then traffic metrics don't matter nearly as much because you have keywords that convert 10 times more than others.
Mm-hmm.
And provided you track it properly, then it doesn't matter
Yeah.
to us.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
The
Of
next
course.
topic I wanted to go through is I've seen you do a lot of updates to your content. And honestly, I find updating content one of the most annoying thing to do, like as a site owner. I don't know how you feel about this, but like I wanted to know how you do that in the most efficient way possible because it's always very tricky, I feel.
I mean, there isn't an efficient way to do it because it isn't always the same problem.
Yep.
For example, a post can be out of date just because a tool deployed a new design, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then all your screenshots are out of date. That is relatively easy to fix. Relatively easy. But if there's been a pivotal change, if you wrote a tutorial about 10 times in your content, the best way to update that delete it.
All right, so we agree. That's why it sucks.
And sometimes it's the how that you do it that's changed. Sometimes it's the whole thing's irrelevant. It really depends. But luckily I have a lot of engagement in terms of comments, and my readers aren't shy of telling me.
We get that too.
So we make updates.
Here's my question though. Let's imagine your post is out of date and you know it. You are ranking number 3 for the query and making good money. Do you take the risk to redo the post? Or do you say, you know what, I'm going to hold on a little bit more, and when if the traffic starts going down, then I'll start touching it?
It depends on...
Do you gamble your rankings,
It depends on what's out of date.
But let's say, let me try to take an example. Let's say...
I've got a good example. I've got an example. SEMrush.
Okay.
SEMrush review. I think we compete on that term as well.
We don't rank because we give a negative review, actually.
Oh, really?
So we're the only ones giving a negative review. We don't measure search intent. We don't rank for that review. So,
okay, so SEMrush review was probably written 2 years ago. It is out of date.
Okay.
They've got new features. They've got new things. The interface.
They release a lot of stuff all the time.
The process of some things have changed. It is out of date, but it is still relevant.
Okay.
Because it's teaching you different ways to do things within SEMrush, which you can still do. It's kind of changed a little bit, but if you've got something between your ears, you can figure it out. It's still relevant. That is not a post I'm going to roll a dice on.
Okay.
It ranks well. It's still relevant, although it's not completely current.
Basically, if it's not perfect, but it's not broken, you don't gamble it, provided it's working for you at this point. Like, let's say
exactly,
people still follow it and buy, and you get conversions, you get all of that. Then you're not willing to change that post. But at the point where it becomes so irrelevant that people can't use it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's when you've either got to take the decision, delete or update.
Yep.
Now, if it's reached the point where it's become so irrelevant that you're thinking that, it probably needs updating. That's probably the right thing to do.
That's usually when you start dropping rankings.
History, you'll see that Google's also telling you that you need to update it. So there's not a single truth in updating your content. You've got to look at each individual piece on its own merit. You might look at a piece of content and be like, well, it doesn't rank for anything. It's out of date. It gets 0 traffic, but it's got 200 backlinks. So screw deleting that. I'll just bury it where no one will ever get to it.
I would redirect it personally.
Redirect it?
Yeah, why not?
I don't like the redirect, because then you end up with a bunch of irrelevant links with irrelevant anchor text coming to whatever page
you need something
go to.
somewhat relevant. But for example, in your case, why wouldn't you redirect it to one of your hubs, for example? Let's say
and some posts I have deleted, I have redirected to hubs. Yes, I have done. But that's. But if a post had 200 links, I probably wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Everything has its own. There's not a single truth with updating or deleting your content.
I know, but that's why it's interesting to talk about it, because there's and a lot of people have a lot of text on this, and I feel like the industry hasn't decided exactly what's the best way to do this at this point. So I think it's quite interesting to talk about this. I've talked about this with Matt Diggity, Team Solo, all the guys, etc. And pretty much everyone has a different answer, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Which is why, I still think the industry is searching itself on how to do that. I believe at this point, updating content that has some kind of traction has a way higher return than creating new content.
Yes, updating content certainly brings a boost in search traffic. There's no denying that. But is it the boost that you want when you could spend that resource doing something else that gives you a boost that you do want?
If you want the traffic.
Am I going to go renovate the Elance article for Upwork? No.
No.
I'd much rather spend that time, doing something that's relevant. And all I did at the top of the article said, Elance is now Upwork. That was the update. I didn't update any of the screens.
It sounds like you're going to axe that part of your website.
Probably.
You're mentally done with it already.
Well, it's, I love experimenting. The SEO blog is my experiment playground. I build test sites, I do experiments, and the blog is usually the first live place I deploy the deploy an experiment before going and putting it anywhere else. It's amazing how much you guys miss, by the way, anyone that reads my blog.
I was following your A/B test on pop-ups at some point. Like I think a few years ago, you were like quite intense on like A/B testing your opt-in pop-ups.
Okay, so current learnings there. If you're using any WordPress plugin to power your pop-ups, you are suffering from significant losses in site speed, page size, and as such, performing more poorly in the rankings. For example, if you're using Thrive Leads right now, that is so heavy. It's unbelievably heavy. And I changed it for Opt-in Monster.
We did that too.
A month ago, and page size went from like 1.6 meg to 700k.
It's not just that, but like the computing that it needs to do for like the A/B testing and everything. It's a lot actually for your servers.
Yeah,
if you're like on a cheap hosting, it's bad, you know.
Yeah, and you know it like logs all of the leads and the data. The table just for that was like 2 gig.
Did you try to open that lead report? Like when you have a lot of leads, it literally takes like an hour to load those.
Yeah, you can't. You just die. So, you know, I've done a lot of testing there, not just from a conversion point. And by the way, moving from Thrive Architect to Thrive Leads to Opt-in Monster tripled my conversions across the board. And literally all I did was replicate every campaign I had in Thrive Leads, replicated in Opt-in Monster, and I just used Opt-in Monster's design template, same words, same images, just their templates. Boom, like cut sites, cut load time in half, cut page size in half, cut requests in half, like insane change, you know. So I'm always testing, I'm always doing things, I'm always moving forward. I'm never stood still with anything, and that's why I have opportunities like this work section where I'm like, well, it's not working very well, what can we do, what can we try, and it's a great learning tool, you know, to just, you know, what's the old phrase, you know, just throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. And I'm very much doing that with the work section right now.
I like doing that too. Like we do that as well on our site, etc. Like there's stuff that I like on larger sites I wouldn't do, but like on a toy, like I'm just like I'll try it or whatever and see what happens. And usually you learn a lot from that. Like people like checking it out as well. I was testing the click-through rate. Like getting people to Google and click and everything. It works, but it doesn't stick. Basically, that's what we found.
Yeah, it's like a popularity thing. A few years ago, what used to happen is if a URL was tweeted about a lot, with the rankings would increase with the velocity of the tweets, and as the velocity of the tweets died, so did the rankings. I think there's signals like that within the algorithm. So that's what you're seeing there.
It's quite interesting. Like you know, people can definitely game that around the holiday seasons or Black Friday or stuff like that. I can imagine.
Oh yeah.
How strong that can be actually.
And the way to maintain that is, you know, the reason that happened is the click-through rate went up and up and up because you'd artificially, you know, told people to search and click. But once people stopped searching and clicking, someone else was winning the click-through rate battle, and that's what killed you. I tend to find actually if you break the top 3 and you don't win the click-through rate battle, you just drop to page 2 and you or to the bottom. And Did
you test a lot the title tags A/B testing? Like I've played with it. And I hated it actually. I hated it because it's just not accurate. Like because the whole sub changes all the time, so you can't really attribute your win to what you did or what everyone else is doing and how it's changing.
So actually, ironically, the only testing that I like for headlines is Thrive Headline Optimizer.
Oh wow! We go from like a non-recommendation to.
And the reason I like it, it does add bloat. It does add bloat. But the reason I like it is it measures the engagement on your site. It doesn't look to Google's external search results. And it's not changing it for Google. It's just changing it for the user. And you can kind of decide, you know, what defines engagement, like if the person scrolled or time on page and everything like that. So I did title testing with the humans in mind, like which titles make people stick. And it's amazing what kind of spread that had. Like you're essentially testing a headline, right? On a landing page. Essentially, that's what you're doing. So we know that that's impactful. And it had, you know, great benefits. However, in a quest for site speed, it didn't survive the chop.
No. I was gonna say, do you still do that now? Like, do
No.
you still do these A/B tests now?
No, but one of the reasons I don't do it is because I was doing it for like 2 years. Every post had 3 titles, and I've digested all of that learning now.
Yeah, now you know what to
I feel
write.
like I don't really need to, like, I have a better feeling for it. So it just wasn't worth the trade-off in site speed, user experience, and the
By the way,
knowledge.
talking about site speed, actually, like honestly, like I just got bored of like trying a million things, and like I would tweak my site and I would just lose my site speed again, etc. It's a pain in the ass. And I found a service that like does a pretty good job so far. It's like I haven't been using it long enough to give it a hard recommendation, so I'm gonna give it a few more months. But nitropack.io basically acts like a CDN, but it basically it takes care of all the site speed optimization for you. It's made for that. So it like rewrites your site to optimize the time to first byte and all of that to like just
Okay, that's
speed
cool.
things
Yeah.
up. It takes care of everything. Honestly, for us, it's been like we used to be very slow on Authority Hacker actually, and you can check it's running on it now actually, so you can check it on, but you can check our site speed. And now when I run, like for example, I was checking on Surfer, we're always the slowest or whatever. It was a pain in the ass. And now we're always like competing with the top 2 or 3 easily, without having done anything else actually. So that's worked pretty well for us. Again, I'm not giving you the hard recommendation because I want, like for these things that serve your files, I want the test of time.
Of course,
you know how these things can go down, etc.
I'm more than aware.
So to anyone listening, test at your own risks. For us, it's working right now.
To anyone listening, the best thing that you can do right now is go load up GTmetrix, bash in your website. If it's loading more than 3 seconds, you've got work to do. Real simple. Go spend a bit of money, go buy WP Rocket, install it. In 1 click, you'll solve 90% of your problems. Then if you want to spend a little bit more money, go and drop a CDN, a decent one, not Cloudflare, and that will take care of most site speed issues, unless it's weighed down with plugins like Thrive Leads.
I had all of that, and we were still slow actually. I mean,
really?
Yeah, and the thing is, like, even with like running posts on Elementor, etc., now we get like really fast site speed using like even using bloat, because it rewrites the HTML. So it basically takes the page and just like makes it like just like rewrites it basically. And
I'm gonna check it.
So let's see how it goes.
If my blog goes offline for any period of time,
it might be my fault. Again, this is not a hard recommendation. Try at your own risk, but like several people have tried it and have done well. The only issue is if you're running ads, because it's trying to optimize the ads. So you need to exclude the JavaScripts of the ad scripts that you're using, because otherwise it's going to be a fucking mess, and it's going to lazy load your ads. You're going to make less money, etc. So be a bit careful of that. But if you use things like deadline funnel as well, if you use things like that like have JavaScript that needs to load before the page, then you need to be a little bit careful of that, because it's gonna async all the JavaScript.
I'm just running a free test right now. But the takeaway is, look, site speed is important, and if you're not paying attention to it, you need to be. It's one of the things that's in your control. In SEO, not everything's in our control. Site speed is. So if you're doing a bad job of site speed, you really need to get a grip. It's in your control.
I agree to a certain extent. I think my problem with that advice is that a lot of newbies that don't even have a business or a site yet are going to spend days and days working on site speed and not building their website, because it's like they're lazy to work on the content, and they're just going to be like, oh, I have 2 blog posts, I'm going to work on my site speed, you know what, I'm going to get A, etc. It's like, no, you need like hundreds of pages, you need like links.
Of course, there's a right time, but most people who've got a site that's there, and it's when anyone says, oh, my site's not ranking, the first thing I check, site speed. And very, very often people haven't taken care of that, because there's so many things to take care of.
It's a pain in the ass as well, usually.
So it is a pain in the ass. It's a complete pain in the ass.
It's like you optimize, but then you like add a plugin or you do something, etc., and then your site goes back to shit. And it's kind of the problem.
There are sites that buck the trend of site speed. There are sites out there, actually, Backlink being a great example, where often their pages are 20, 25, 30 megabytes with 20-second load times, but it's such an authoritative site in terms of its link profile that becomes less of an indication to quality in Google. But if you're just an affiliate site like the average Joe, that's going to be
Yeah.
a much stronger weight than someone like Brian Dean or maybe even myself or you might face. So, but it's in your control, and you can usually fix most things with WP Rocket and a CDN, maybe some image optimization, use short pixel.
Yeah, short pixel is okay actually. Like you get like quite a few optimizations for free, and they run an AppSumo regularly as well.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
usually what you should go for.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you about doing in-depth product reviews, because you've mentioned that you do that on your other sites. You said you do these Amazon sites, and you do that on Matthew Woodward as well. We have done quite a few of them. I really like the hosting one that you've done recently, trying to find the fastest hosting one.
Yeah, not everyone.
I've followed the drama that came with the backlink checker one this last year as well.
Yeah, that was a nightmare. We can talk about that actually. That was a nightmare.
And that's exactly what I want to talk about.
Excellent. Okay.
So we've done one on like fastest WordPress theme recently, like, and same thing. I'm not gonna quote any names, but like very often product owners that are very involved with their product, if they're not number one, you face a lot of backslash when you don't rank them number one, etc. And so I wanted to talk about first of all, how do you do build tests that feel fair to the product owners, and how do you deal with maybe the passion that they might have for your results because it might not be what they expected or something, you know?
Okay, so first building the test. The test really is dependent on what you're testing. You need to look at what there is to test and why you're testing it. In the fastest WordPress hosting, one of the negative piece of feedback the Cloudways team sent me was that, hey, you just used our $10 DigitalOcean like cheap droplet. Why didn't you build it on the Google optimized thing, which would have put them on the same infrastructure as Kinsta? They were saying that would have provided a fairer test. The reason I didn't do that was because if you look at any WordPress hosting group, blogging group, forum, or anything else, one of the most strongly recommended services is that. It's one of the strongly most like that. It's overwhelming how many people recommend that setup with Cloudways as the fastest solution. It's faster than ever. So that's why it was tested. So you got to look at things, you know, really through a microscope and decide what you're testing, how you're testing it. It's very easy to put your foot wrong. I do put my foot wrong. I'm probably always going to put my foot wrong because, you know, that's how
hard.
it is. Yeah. Well, you can never please everyone. You can't. You just can't. It's impossible. So fastest WordPress hosting, of course, was a test that was built on. I did it last year, and all of that was really, you know, a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago, there was a big drama with WP Engine.
Yep.
And I had lots of problems with them, and actually since then they're always talking shit at conferences. They keep inviting my friends to private dinners, and you know, like 5 years on, they're still talking about it. You know, I'm like, and then they didn't perform well in the 2008 test. Then in 2019, they announced, oh, we're now 40% faster than everyone else. We've got this new Google C2 platform. We're better than everyone. And they made it sound like it was available to everyone. But when you tried to buy it, it was like really hard to buy and like $600 a month. And I can't tell you the amount of hoops I had to jump through to get to that point, like sales calls and like the really like protective over it. At the same time, Kinsta just announced, hey, we're just going to give everyone that for free, starting for $29 a month now. It's global. In fact, we've already rolled it all out to all of our customer base.
I didn't
so
even
like
know.
WP Engine,
Kinsta, but I didn't know actually. Great.
Yeah, exactly, right. And WP Engine celebrated it like they were leaders of some kind of grand new technology and this, that, and the other. And we're 40% faster than anyone else in WordPress, they said. Like,
you should make that kind of claims,
yeah. I'm like, oh really? Well, I ran a WordPress test last year. Let's run it again this year and let's see what happens. They actually haven't been in touch with me on that post. Last year they caught my testing sites before I did the testing and sent me an email, and I didn't reply until after the testing was done, and I sent them the results. And they didn't reply.
So how do you deal with that? And do you ever have you ever gotten close to like legal trouble or something like that? Because it does happen. I mean, there's a lot of stories in like the mattress industry, for example, with like the guy that literally lost his site to like the Casper mattress company. I don't know if you know about that story.
Yeah, but the mattresses are often, it's an objective opinion, right?
Yeah.
I'm not publishing an opinion. I'm publishing data from testing, and not only that,
Yeah.
here are the test sites. So if you don't believe my data, here's the URLs. Go run that yourself. You know, that's costing thousands of dollars a month to leave running, and I'll leave it running.
Yeah.
It probably actually means that post will end up net zero in
So
profitability.
how far
But
did someone come to like trying to like threaten you for changing the results, or like not being very happy with that? Like how far does that go in terms of tension with people who disagree with results? Because we face some of that backslash, but I think you face more actually.
yeah, okay. So let's talk. There's a couple of best backlink checkers. The history of that was Ahrefs versus Majestic, right?
Yeah.
And actually, before that, I'd done a case study of 5 tools. I think it was Majestic, Mars, SEO Spyglass, and like 5 tools and 3 sites, around 3 sites for each of the 5 tools to see which was the best backlink checker, right?
Mm-hmm.
Moz came second. Majestic came second. Ahrefs was first, and SEO Power Suite came last. Dixon Jones from Majestic absolutely lost his nut and made it personal and started throwing around all these insults and everything else. And not just on Majestic, but through a few other publicly known figures, they started a little bit of a slander case against me for those results. And then they published their own case study, which showed Majestic winning and all the rest of it. So I was like, well, you've put me in a really difficult position now, because this was the data. It wasn't my opinion. And he was saying I was biased and everything else, but what he hadn't taken into account was SEO Power Suite the month before had literally given me $5,000 worth of product to give away. It was really awkward when I published the results of that case study and they were last.
Yeah.
You know, they're like a pot, but the data's a data. Like, it's not my opinion. And I sent him an email saying, look, I'm sorry, but it is what it is. Like, and they accepted that. It's fine. Don't worry. You know, that's just how it is. We'll
actually
work
nice.
to improve.
SEO Power Suite.
Yeah. Really nice.
Really
Open
nice.
to speak with. So, you know, they had that approach, despite it tarnishing our business relationship, but Majestic had a different way of dealing with it. So that put me in a position where I was like, well, you've pushed me into a corner here. You're attacking me you personally as well. Not like I just published data. I didn't say, oh, Majestic's a piece of shit. Or, you know, this was the data. And he came second, and it was a close second. It wasn't even
not even that bad, yeah.
like you know. So I was like, well, okay, I got to defend myself here. How can I do that? I was like, well, I bet I can design a test to do that. So I was like, right, you saying I'm biased? Let's make it as unbiased as possible. I'm going to use Majestic's data set and Majestic's testing methodology against Ahrefs. That way, you can't call me out on this is bull. That like, because it's what you said. I'm using your own testing your own data to test you against the competitors. No, I'm not leaving any wiggle room this time, because when I originally wrote the first post, I wasn't intending to cause a commotion. But then I'm like, right, let's run the data. You're saying that this is wrong, that's corrupt. Let's run the data and see what happens. It turned out that when we ran the data, Ahrefs spanked them left, right, and center when we did the million domain test. So that didn't get a good reception from Majestic.
How do you deal with it? Like, how do you, like, is there a way, a method to deal with like unhappy product owners when you give a bad review?
I'm just honest with people, you know. I'm just straight. I think as we spoke today, you see, I'm like, it is what it is. Like, if your product didn't perform, it's because you've got some work to do. It's not like, it's not my fault. In fact, I've helped you. I've given you a benchmark in your business that you didn't have previously, that now allows you to see, okay, well, why weren't we performing in that area? Maybe you didn't know that was a problem before. You know, I'm very open with how I discuss things, and people are not. But if you're going to attack me personally, then okay, well, if you put me in a position I got to defend myself, I'm going to defend myself, but I'm going to do it with data.
So I come from the point of view that if people want to still do affiliate reviews, they're going to have to kind of like adopt that style in the future to get the people behind them and the engagement behind reviews, which like
Yes.
blend reviews don't get. Like
Yeah,
you got
I
a
mean,
lot of engagement.
there is. I'm not going to tell you the company, but there is a piece of
Uh-huh.
content on my blog right now I've been offered $50,000 to delete.
Okay. Is that WP Engine?
I can't confirm who it
All
is, but
right,
there is
all
a
right.
piece of content on my blog that I denied about 3 years ago. They offered, and I said no.
Yeah,
Not to
that's exactly. It generates engagement when you do that kind of stuff, and I think that's the way to
Well, I
create
never
content.
published that. Actually, this is the first time I spoke about it publicly. It was done
Well,
in
it's
backdoor
like
channels at a
that
conference.
should be the snippet before the podcast or something.
and the recent best link checker, I declared SEMrush as a winner, and I went out on my shield with that. That data had been verified by Ahrefs' team. It had been verified by SEMrush's team. It had been verified by my team. It got through so many checks that it's beyond embarrassing that it got to where it is, like unbelievably. And if it wasn't for Russell Jones over at Moz, they'd have got away with it.
Yeah,
and the way Russell Jones found it was like really out of the box thinking, because the numbers that SEMrush provided matched the numbers in the dashboard when you were checking them.
What was the problem exactly, so that people know?
It was, let's say, okay, because of load balancing and because of CDNs and things, sometimes if you were access authority hacker, it might be served from one IP. But if I access it from Singapore, it might get accessed by a different IP. Okay.
Yep.
Every backlink checker on the planet assigns one domain to one IP. All of them do that, except for SEMrush. Okay. SEMrush will, if they've seen this domain has 100 different IPs in the last 6 months, it says that it's got 100 IPs in its backlink database, which isn't true.
Yep.
It just isn't true.
And that's not how Google views it.
It's not how Google views it. It's not how common sense uses it either. But the way they counted the data was radically different to anyone else, and that only became apparent once Russ went into some like real detail with it, and he was like, "No, this is wrong." When I went to and bear in mind, right, before putting these tests together, people might just think I've just thrown them together willy-nilly. No, I had conversations with every single company in that test before. This is my intention. This is what I'm going to test. This is how I'm going to test it. Here's when I've done it before for Ahrefs versus Majestic. I'm going to repeat exactly that, but with 5 tools. Is that cool? Yeah. You know, in SEMrush's case, I had an hour-long call with 3 members of their team discussing the test.
I think that's the way you try to avoid drama, right? It's like telling them before and essentially letting them know your intentions.
Yeah, but despite all of that, look at how it blew up in my face.
Yeah, it was crazy. Basically, yeah, it's like in the end, Ahrefs won by quite a large margin, right?
Yeah, but I declared SEMrush won by quite a lot.
Yeah, I know. I followed it. It took you like 3 weeks to fix that or something. I imagine it was
the reason it took 3 weeks to fix it is originally when I went to SEMrush and we found the mistake, they didn't want to provide updated data. And
that shows you something.
They said, oh, to do that, because they count data differently, which they do. If you go and dig into it, they do count the data differently. They do. I'm not saying that they knowingly cheated.
Yeah, they just have a different way of doing it, which is
but they have a different way of counting it. But explaining your different way of counting it would have been a very important point to make in the conversation that we had about counting data, and they didn't. So when they had to then redo the data, it wasn't just like they had to click export and generate a report. They had to actually build scripts that take all, if they've got a domain with 100 IP records, they need to consolidate that, and it took time.
To be honest, they should take that opportunity to fix the tool, no?
Well, yeah, arguably, but it does allow them to say they have large IP databases.
Yeah, fair enough. It's
so and if you look at any of their marketing posts and things, they like celebrating that.
We did one on the keyword difficulty, and we didn't get very good feedback from them. So yeah.
Yeah, and when they didn't want to provide the updated data, I was very direct and threatening. And like, look, you are going to provide the updated data, otherwise you cheated, and it looks like you cheated. And the fact that you're now running away from it when a problem is exactly what a cheater would do. So you're either going to bring me the updated data, or I'm going to publish. What do you want? and the data came
it's
pretty
quite
quick.
crazy, the proportions these kind of like in-depth review take, and it's really just not just in online marketing. For many things, it goes to that level when a comparison review gets a degree of exposure and people pay attention to it. Like product owners become extremely defensive. And my question to you, after going through all this trouble multiple times, etc., is do you think it's worth it? Do you think as a business model, going for like the high attention thing versus going for the half-assed roundup review that will rank anyway? You could probably rank anyway, and you probably might make the same amount per visitor, provided you rank. Like, is it worth it?
I mean, it depends how much money you want to spend on link building.
Yeah, I guess it depends.
Look, like you're speaking to me like MatthewWoodward.co.uk has a business model.
I'm asking for like people who are interested in doing this as well. Like the idea is like if someone's listening to this podcast and is considering doing these kind of like more controversial, like real field tested reviews, etc., is it something that makes sense from a business point of view, or should people just like do the old school way, just make a list of 10 products, best backlink checker, blah blah blah, Ahrefs, Substat, SEMrush, blah blah blah, click here to get a free trial.
I think what you're discussing there is a difference between an SEO and a marketer.
But my question is, what makes the most financial sense today?
I mean, it absolutely depends. Like, again, there's not a single truth. It depends. Controversial content can work, but it can also backfire.
Yeah.
The best backlink checkers post is a great example of that, because I pushed SEMrush as a new king of backlink checkers. I use those words, and 3 weeks later, I was not using those words. And I was greatly embarrassed. And I spoke to Tim many times before the test on it, and it was terrible.
He was cool with it, actually. Like, I remember I talked to him, actually. I think when the post came out, like, we're on Slack with each other, so we just talk. And it's just like, and he was actually cool with it. I could feel.
I'd been in constant contact with him. They had the data before I published. Everyone had the data before I published. Everyone had a chance to review it. And the way I went about fixing that was, I was like, okay, like, I looked at all the engagement, all the posts I had across everywhere, and I totaled it up, like 300,000 people have seen it. So so to correct that, what I did is I published the update, full transparency. This is what happened. This is the new results, and then I put enough money into it until nearly 1 million people had seen the corrected content.
I see. So cost. You did advertising, right? You did Facebook ads or something?
Yeah. I lost probably around $15,000 on that post.
Wow. Okay. Well, honestly, that's a fair way of making it right to the companies.
And it was my mistake, and I own it, But that's one of the risks of going controversial. And even though I went to the lengths of speaking with every company, explaining the tests, like getting all the data off them, verifying the data, sending all the data to them, each company verifying each other's company's data, my own team, despite all of that, look at how it turned out.
And we get that kind of stuff all the time too. Like there's like 10 people involved, it passes from hand to hand, and it's like everyone's looking at their own thing, and then eventually you end up like not seeing the big picture or something. It happens. Like, it happens to us as well. It's like it's fair. It's like people who have not done this probably don't understand how much work this is, but it's like so much.
Oh yeah, it's insane. That post probably took 6 months to do. And despite doing all of that, you know what Moz said the day they provided the data? They're like, oh yeah, but we don't actually count that in the database, so we're only going to be provided estimated data. I'm like, but why didn't you tell me that before? And they asked to be included. So I'm like, You know?
That's the hard part, because you're not comparing apples to apples or oranges to oranges.
No,
Everyone's kind of
you're
like
not.
doing their own thing, and then it's like that's why this designing the test itself is like a huge pain in the ass.
Yeah,
I remember
yeah.
when we tested the email marketing tools, we actually took one of our biggest email lists and like split it in like we found people who opened in like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, etc. Made segments of that and split it in 6 different tools so that we would email the same email at the same time from each tool to actually see which one gets the most open rate, etc. And even that, to be frank, is not 100% accurate. It's just the best we could come up with.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can only imagine the pain that you went through.
Absolute nightmare. But controversial content has its place, you know, and doing those kind of tests in tools, not many people go to those lengths. It attracts me. I imagine if I did this in a bit of a broader niche that wasn't SEO or digital marketing, it's the kind of thing that ends up with big boy media links like BBC and like that. In this niche, not so, it doesn't attract that kind of attention, but in some niches it can work really well.
I think in personal finance, for example, I'm thinking like all these online banks, etc., like testing like the actual fees or something like that, like doing the same transfer from multiple banks. Like, I can imagine people would do really well with these things.
Yeah, you know, and there's probably great room for a site in a payday loan niche that does that well and responsibly and ethically and everything else. You know, everyone else is looking for that quick win and missing out. So you know, something controversial.
Hard niches?
I think it's a tool that you should have in your toolbox that you shouldn't be afraid to use. And if you're going to use it, you better make sure you got your shit nailed down. Do not throw opinion in there. Don't throw personal anything in there. Just comment on the data. Be neutral in your commentary. If someone does attack you personally, then let them have it. Like, you know, you want to fight? All right, we'll fight. But most people, if you present your findings respectfully, you'll get a respectful response. You know, the success of my blog has been on that it was focused on helping people solve their problems.
Yeah, and
so this is a combination of that with controversy. Yeah, well, we'll see what happens.
Interesting.
It might blow up in my face like last time.
Yeah, it's one of these. It's like it's very involving personally to work out these strategies. Like a lot more than if you were just trying to rank for a keyword. Like it's like you have to put your name behind it, and you have to like back everything you say. You have to actually know your topic really well. It's something that is powerful, but requires a degree of involvement that's way past what most SEOs tend to experience with what.
Yeah, and you know that's kind of what we opened with, that a lot of people come from SEO, but it's more than that. And you either come from SEO into SEO and then grow from there, or you come from the other way. But in general, business acumen, general sales and marketing knowledge is generally lacking. You know, I was a kid at school selling you Pokemon cards, sweets. I was going door to door knocking on people selling karate lessons. I was like, you know, I've been doing that since I was like 12, you know, like sales in one form or another. Like, you know, even like banging on people's doors and washing cars, you know. Just I've always been, you know, as a kid, so I've always come from sales.
I was making money playing video games. I paid most of my studies actually playing video games. So
oh yeah,
I went to business school and could pay all the fees with just game money. So and Mark, my co-founder, he actually created a bank on EVE Online, and he had a whole loan system, etc.
Oh wow, like, yeah.
And so richest person on EVE Online actually.
and that business acumen that you both clearly have shines through in Authority Hacker.
Yeah, we try to go past just SEO. SEO is a traffic source, basically.
Of course.
Okay, it's like that. I wanted to talk about video, but I think I'm gonna mix it together with the wrap up of this podcast, which is your focus for 2020. I know you went on YouTube quite a bit last year. You invested more in video, etc. I wanted to know what you've learned from that 1 year journey. We're actually getting into video, as you can see. I have a proper camera and everything now, finally. And I'm personally curious, but I also think a lot of people are looking at video now as a way to diversify. I feel like YouTube is a really easy place to like gain visibility these days compared to like Google, which is like much more mature. So what did you learn from this? You know, how do you go about it?
2020, you're going to see less video from me.
Okay. Well, you see more from us, less from you, right?
Look, setting up and doing video right, as you know, is a lot of investment in time and energy. There's a lot of things you need to learn. You need to learn about, audio. You need to learn, I don't know if you can see on the camera behind me, you need to learn about soundproofing. You need to learn about lighting. You need to learn about so many things to do it right. Then you've got script writing. Then you've got feeling comfortable in front of a camera. Then you've got the cost of an editor, animation. There's a lot of things that go into do when you're just watching a video. You're like, woo, it's
you don't realize,
but video productions are hard work. Like, it's a lot of time and commitment, and doing it continually is really hard. I have a very specific process in how we do things. I usually record videos in batch, between 6 and 8 at a time. It's all managed in a Trello board. I put the script. I put ideas on for animations. The editor puts idea for animations. Then I record it. Then I give it to him, and he does the first edit, and then feedback, and we just go through that. Even with having that kind of support, like full-time video editor, it's still very, 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 very involved.
Yep.
To do it really well. Maybe I went a bit overboard on that. But a lot of the videos I created last year were in response to releasing the SEO portal, which I really wanted to be a static resource of SEO. You can learn from the basics, what is SEO, all the way through to link building, and each one to have a video where necessary. A lot of my video production was focused on filling that out. So a lot of the videos
it wasn't for engagement directly on YouTube.
No, it wasn't. It's not like, I can't send an email to my list going, hey, what is SEO? And send them the video. And, even though the video is excellent and it costs a bunch of money to produce, and it's part of that content pillar that I need.
Basically.
Yeah. But done on a high quality scale. So I didn't see the response I would have liked to have seen from the amount of time and effort and money that was invested into getting there. The ones that have had success, ironically, were the FAQ rich snippets, which I didn't use my video editor for, nor my video studio. It was just a screen capture.
That's when you're like, why am I spending so much time on this?
And the fastest WordPress hosting has become popular because of it.
Yeah, I saw this one did well, actually.
Controversy. So if you're just doing video for SEO purposes, don't waste your time or your money. You've really got to make sure that the video closely aligns to your business goal to see that it's worthwhile. Maybe my readers feel differently. I don't feel like the effort I put into producing the videos for the SEO portal was worth it.
Okay.
I just don't. I've not seen the jump in subscribers. All right, they got 1,000 views, 2,000. But it wasn't really worth it. But where it is worth it is if you were going to do something groundbreaking, something new, introduce a new test, a concept, a case study, new data, something like that, and you can make it exciting and engaging. That's where you'll have success with video, and it's for that reason you'll see less videos from me this year, because you can't keep that
you
on
do less
a
quantity,
cycle
more
high
quality.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I think that makes sense.
So, and you might have seen that in the fastest WordPress hosting video. It was much better edit, much better animations, much better all around. It is leaps and bounds above the others, and that's part of why
it worked.
That happened. Yeah. So less of that in 2020, but more using video the right way rather than using it as an extension of the post.
I see what you mean. It's like, for us actually it's quite interesting because, as I said earlier, we do paid traffic as well. And basically to scale Facebook ads now, you need videos.
Yes.
You absolutely need videos.
Yeah.
you need to advertise videos to like lookalike audiences of relevant audiences,
Yeah.
and then people who engage with the videos, we target them with like sales
Yeah.
leads.
Yeah. And then hit them. Yeah.
And it's like basically combining these two together. But I think for the case where you're just mostly using it for SEO and just like embellishing blog posts, basically, then it might be a bit limited unless you manage to rank for good keywords on YouTube. I guess like you might have a few that like manage to rank for good keywords or something.
Yeah, the traffic's not always there though from YouTube and type-in searches.
I see. Okay, fair enough.
And then like I think probably it's you got to use video at the higher end of things. Probably I'm going to use it more if I do a paid course. That would be all video. But for general posts and learning and things like that, unless it's anything spectacular or new or pivotal or something like that, I think that's the only place I'll use video moving forward. Yeah,
interesting. That's actually good learnings. That is the first part of your plan for 2020. Anything else we can expect from you apart from the tool for niche edits that you mentioned? You mentioned there might be other tools, and then we talked about video.
Yeah. I mean, I'm mostly playing. I got sites growing, managing a team behind that. We're fairly stable in that. We can produce a new site in about 6 weeks right now.
That's very good.
And all the link building gets taken care of with Pitchbox. We've got some great processes in place. All of that kind of takes care of itself for the most part. The only part I do in site building is keyword research, generating the idea for the niche.
That's the most fun part as well.
Because you get to flesh it out, and again, you learn about the different types of people in the niche, different problems and so, and then that keyword research becomes a part of that overall process. So I do all of that bit. We touched earlier, Diggity said that he was stepping away from writing for keywords and writing more for people, and I suffered from that in the SEO world. So I'm going to go back to the basics of helping people. There's lots of experiments I did last year I didn't publish the results of, that I was holding back. Things like I was going to present it at Chiang Mai SEO, and I was going to share the idea and what I'd been doing. But I've actually got a PhD in search engine optimization. I actually got a doctorate in SEO, and
Does that exist?
It does now. All of my avatars and sites I'm building, I'm building like real people with qualifications and things. So we've been playing a lot with that. I'll continue to play with that this year. Knowledge graph is proven particularly fruitful.
I saw that you got like verified at something. I saw on Facebook, like you said you were verified or something.
Because I've been playing with inserting things into the knowledge graph for a while, and now I feel like I've got a relatively simplified process of doing it and making it stick, which has been the very tricky part. So I'm going to do a couple of experiments with a couple of people in our industry who don't currently have knowledge panels. I'm going to give them the gift of knowledge panel and then share the process of how I did that. So content like that, like if I did keyword research on that, it'd be like 100 searches a month, wouldn't ever create the content. But as you can probably tell, if I publish something like that, it's going to get a lot of attention, so moving more to actually publishing a lot of the stuff that I'm playing with.
That's cool. I'm looking forward to it, actually.
And Matt invited me to speak at Chiang Mai SEO because it went really badly this year, and at the moment I've said no because it doesn't fit into that ethos. Like when you're standing on a stage, you're just talking at people. You're just talking at them. It's a one-way conversation. Like I'd much rather sit down over a couple of days and help 20 to 30 people meaningfully. Like sit down one-on-one, show me your site, what's your problems. Like I'd rather sit there for 2 days and do that than do a 45-minute presentation,
Is that why you didn't come to Chiang Mai?
No.
You're like, no. You know what?
No. That's part of like kind of the as I've come to the end of the year and I'm looking and I I've asked a number of conferences if I can do that, and
Mm-hmm.
no one's ever took the bait. All
AdStrive does it actually. You should talk to
oh really?
AdStrive. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
they do
Yeah.
workshops, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, because Affiliate World denied me, Affiliate Summit denied me, and everyone else. I've asked. You know, I like to be in the trenches. You know.
Yeah, fair enough. It's more fun. I mean, it's like I spoke at Shanghai SEO,
Yeah.
but I tried to make it as actionable as possible. It was like data study, then followed by a live case study, basically like, how
Yeah.
use this
Yeah.
data,
Yeah.
do this,
And yeah.
select it
Yeah.
yourself, and
Yeah, and if you've got
very
an
sticky.
idea of what I should do with my slides for Chiang Mai, because I got a full case study prepared, I spent like a bunch of time getting it all.
Just make a Facebook Live. Just make a Facebook Live,
Yeah,
and then
talk through it.
advertise your Facebook Live replay to people who visited your blog in the
Yeah,
last
yeah, yeah,
180
yeah, yeah.
days.
Yeah, I could do that.
I
Yeah,
would do that. It's like it works really
yeah,
well. I mean, Tony Robbins does that basically. He does Facebook Lives and then he advertises to his followers, and that drives crazy engagement.
yeah, yeah. I know
So,
that I missed it because on the Sunday before I had heat stroke in the garden.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know it was heat stroke, but I'd been working, and all of a sudden, faint, weak, hot, couldn't, like
Okay.
just hot, and I was so desperate for cold water that. But I couldn't breathe. I'm like getting more hot. I'm like, fuck, just need this water. Come on, like. And
I can't relate. It's -5 degrees here. Like.
Yeah, yeah. It was terrible. So all of the Sunday I was energyless. The Monday I was kind of recovering, and by the Monday night I felt good. I had the first flight like 4 a.m. Tuesday. I was like 95%. Took the first flight, got to Houston, had like an 8-hour layover in Houston. Sat in the lounge, and things were just going downhill, like hot, cold, sweats, both ends. Just things started hurting, like joints started hurting. It was pretty rough. But I was like, well, screw it. Like the next flight's to Amsterdam, 10 hours. I got a bed. Let's see what it was. It was overnight.
So you're gonna do Houston, Amsterdam, Chiang Mai, or like Bangkok, Chiang Mai. Oh,
yeah. So, you know, I was right at the start of the journey. And in Houston, I could have just gone home and it being a 3-hour flight, and I've been at home in my own bed, and everything would have been great. But I decided to push forward. I went to Amsterdam. I got to when I got off the flight in Amsterdam, I couldn't even get my hand luggage from the top. I had to have someone to help me because it hurt. That I just didn't have the physical strength to do it. So I crawled my ass to KLM desk. I asked them what we could do. I called Diggity. I was like, you know, what can you say in that moment, you know? And he suggested, well, just have a night in Amsterdam, see how you feel in the morning. I did that. I spoke with KLM. They said, look, you can in the morning let us know, either we're going to book you on the night flight to Bangkok the next day, or we're going to book you on the flight home the next day. Just come and tell us what you want to do in the morning. So we did that. What I hadn't planned for in Amsterdam was, look, it's 35 Celsius where I live. In Bangkok, Chiang Mai, it's 30 Celsius. I was not planning a night in 2-degree weather in Amsterdam when I was already like dying.
Welcome back to Europe.
You know, so I'm like on the train, like I couldn't even pulling my bag was. So in the end, I just called it. I was like, I feel like at this point, I've done everything I can do to make it happen, and yeah, I have to call it. The great irony, of course, was that the day before my talk, I started feeling better, and I was like, oh, damn it, if I just went and just sat in my room and hated life for a week, I'd have been able to do it.
It's hard to tell, though.
Yeah, you don't know. And you know, once I got home, it got worse before it got better. So
fair enough.
I literally spent $10,000 to do a circle, and I hate my life.
That's not the best either.
Yeah. And so that's what that was my first.
That's a good enough excuse. I'll stamp it with like approved. You know. Anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted to talk about in this podcast, because we're gonna slowly wrap things up.
Not really. You know, I think anyone
Anything you talked about that you didn't want to talk about?
No, no, I'm straight. You know, you can ask me anything you want. I'm always going to answer you. I've not got an ego to hide behind or anything. Just it is what it is. You know, um, you know, I, I see a lot of sites. I see a lot of people asking questions. I see it, as do yourself, and we've talked about it throughout the podcast. SEO is becoming less about SEO and more about marketing and sales. It's more about building a business. If you're building niche sites right now, you've got to step away from the fact that you're building a niche site. You've got to be building a business. It changes the outcome of every question that you ask yourself completely. From the way that you structure it, from writing processes to having marketing, having sales, having all of a proper business plan, because that's when you launch a niche site, that's what you are doing. You are launching a business and you must treat it like that. People aren't treating it like that. And I think that is a big mistake that many people make. So that's really my parting advice. If you're building an Amazon site and you're just sending people to Amazon and you don't offer any value over and above people going to Amazon and reading verified reviews from people that have actually bought the product, if your site doesn't offer any value over and above that, you really need to think about what you're doing, because you're not building a business. You're not building anything long term. You're not building anything that's going to survive. You might have a couple of good years, a good year or whatever, but you've not built a business. And I think that's going to be the difference between people that really succeed and really struggle in the next years. I mean, just look at the search results right now. You're saying yourself that the review world is dominated by big companies. And even if you think it's different companies competing, they're owned by the same company. Like quite often the top 3 results, different sites, but they're all owned by the same company. We're seeing much less like niche sites appearing in these results. You do see them,
but like not for the B2C.
You see them,
big B2C.
Yeah, you do see them, but you don't see them like you did 5 years ago.
Not as much.
And that's an indication of the direction Google's going. And not only that, but how business is going. People are taking the web more seriously now. They're investing into creating content. If they can make something like Game of Thrones, imagine what they can do when they put the same talents and minds towards creating content for the web. And that's that shift change in the world. That's the kind of things we're going to be competing against. So you gotta start treating it like a business. You got to build it like a business. And I think many people building authority sites haven't made that pivotal change.
It's actually funny because Authority Hacker Pro is transitioning to focusing on that. It's like I'm doing one more SEO blueprint, like advanced SEO. And everything else I'm going to produce this year is focused on monetization and more complex monetization, more than like affiliate stuff, etc. It's like, pushing people to actually build a list, pushing people to become direct response marketers, not just being able to sell to people, not just passively selling through a review, but actually selling something to someone through pitching them. And then after that, once you pick up that skill, it's like product development and these things,
everything else,
complexifying, etc. So I think it's fine to start with an affiliate site, but I think from the first day when you start, you need to have that vision of how far you can take this.
Yes.
So and that plan on how you pass from one point to the other, and when you will do that as well, because a lot of people know what they can do, but it's easier to write another review, and they just kind of get stuck on that treadmill of doing it, which is, it's also like more money short term, which is why people go for that.
Yes.
If you already have writers, if you already have all of that in place, then like you can either give them more work or figure out a new business model. Well, a lot of people choose to just give more work to their
just keep the cycle going, and if you're building your affiliate site right now the same way you were building it a year and a half ago, you're already losing. Losing.
It's changed a lot. Like the search intent has, like, since these medical days, basically like a year and a half, basically, I think the search intent has taken over like so massively.
But that's great for affiliates, because before we had to hide our affiliate links a little bit in content. Like
now for some careers, it's just they want affiliate links.
Affiliate link, boom.
You can do that. But you can also be less creative, which is a bit frustrating for me sometimes. So like,
Yes.
and I'm sure you feel that on Matthew Woodward as well. You have some
Yeah.
content that just doesn't match what like the format that Google's expecting. It's much better, but it doesn't match what like the other 9
Yeah.
pages do. And
Yeah.
then you just get slammed because of that. And despite the fact that you're like, it's better. And it's like, it's quite frustrating sometimes too.
Yes, of course. Yeah, yeah, and that's the game that we're playing, right? You never, even if you do everything right, it doesn't always stick. And
All right. So I think we're gonna wrap it up here. I think that's a good
yeah,
parting words. Like even if you do things right, it doesn't always take. And I think that like
that's how
characterizes
it
the
is.
interview.
Yeah.
So so if people want to check you out, they can go on matthewwoodward.co.uk. Are you active on any social media if people want to do follow
Yeah,
you
I'm
there or something?
yeah, Facebook. You'll find me floating around on a few groups and that. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. You'll hopefully love the videos because they're a pain to create. I'd love to send you to an opt-in or tell you to buy something, but I haven't got anything to sell you. So
I think you have
just
opt-ins on your homepage, right? So if people go on your homepage,
yeah,
there's
but
like some
like
freebies
if you
there.
want it, you want it. I'm not going to tell you to go sign up. Like go check out the blog if you like the content. Sign up if you don't. Well, I haven't got anything to sell you, so.
All right, fair enough. Well, thank you for taking the time. That was a long interview, but I think that was quite interesting, and we got into like areas that people don't necessarily talk a lot about, etc. So
Yes.
I think that
Yeah.
was cool.
Yeah.
So thanks for the time, and see you next time.
Yeah. See you soon. Bye bye.